Good morning, my fellow Americans. Someone find me an entertainment attorney, a deal maker on that side, because you know what? We need to expose all this madness out here. You've got private investors contacting their former borrowers or their current borrowers and asking them whether or not they want them to release funds that don't belong to them on behalf of another client that they gave a loan to but never gave the guy the money. So I'll have to explain the full situation to you. Well, let's just say this. There's a client that wants to buy a piece of property. He goes out, he takes out a second against his house for, let's say, $110,000. He then expects to get that money to go put into escrow to buy this property. Instead, the lender that gives him the loan for $110,000 decides to wire the money to the seller's lender that they owe money to, pay the property tax on the property that borrower wants, that this guy took out the money for to buy, and then keeps the rest of his money. Then they come back to the seller later on and said, hey, you know, your loan is due. We're putting you in default. And if you don't want to be put in default, ask your buyer that wants to buy your property if we could take his money that we're holding and use it to pay your loan so we don't put you in default. If that's not fraud, if that's not deception, if that's not misleading, they have no consent from him to pay anything. They've taken his money and done what they wanted to do with it. And then they're sending out emails to the seller letting him know that they have this other man's money from his property for his down payment to buy this house from the seller. And in order to avoid them putting the seller in foreclosure, ask that man, can they give the seller the money or use his money to pay the mortgage to themselves so that they don't default the property. And then default is not because the loan is behind on payment. It's because the loan is due to be paid off. It was only a 3-month loan to fix up your property. And then you're supposed to request an extension, which was done. They ignored it, put the property in default, and the goal is to rip you off. My goal is to expose these companies, their names, and who the people are that are doing it. So stay tuned. I'm trying to find the right people and the right situation that will help me expose and bring all this to you publicly.